Well, I was thinking of material for the Royal Court's 50th anniversary, and because of the relationship between that theatre and Samuel Beckett, I knew I had to have some Beckett in there, but also Harold Pinter is part of the Royal Court story. And I also was aware that Harold and Samuel Beckett were friends, and it suddenly seemed to me very logical and exciting to twin them on stage with Harold doing KRAPP'S last tape. The first problem was, of course, that Harold had retired from the stage and was also recovering from a major illness. And I lightly put the idea to him, and as he often was, he was very instinctive about it and said, "Meet me for lunch." Met him for lunch the next day, and within the first 5 minutes he said, "I'm going to do it." What he didn't know was he then got that secondary wave of very bad illness, and we had to be very sensitive and honest about whether he would be able to do it. And the irony was, when I went down to see him in Dorset the summer before we did it, and he was very ill on holiday, my worry was he going to be physically well enough to do it, and was this appropriate to be putting a man in his late 70s through a very demanding monologue? And his worry was he good enough to do it? And I was able to, in a hug, say, "That's not the worry, you'll be brilliant." And he was able to say, "I will do it." And the rehearsals actually were very creative. I think he, obviously for me, a crucial lineage in the 20th century was Joyce to Beckett, Beckett to Pinter, and the kind of mantle inherited by each of those writers and the way they would inspire each other. So seeing Harold the actor respond to the material and the score of KRAPP'S last tape was thrilling, and I also enjoyed really saying to him, "Trust that pause, be longer there," because it seemed to me KRAPP'S last tape was the void into which words come rather than somebody speaking with pauses. And I think Harold, with some encouragement, really went into that territory. And I think the job was simultaneously challenging emotionally, psychologically. You're playing somebody who's just about to die when you are fragile physically, but simultaneously energizing. And I would watch this play out. I'd see him enter the dark interiority of KRAPP as he thinks about his life and his addictions and his creativity and his women and his lost loves and his loneliness, and he would channel all that with such honesty and depth. But then on the other side of it, I saw him afterwards, and he looked 10 years younger a couple of weeks later, because I think the whole ritual of performing that man with such an uncompromising brilliance was rejuvenating for him, and I was so thrilled to be part of that. And I think watching his old stage chops come into gear and thinking about stories like in his piece Mac, performing Othello in a packed cinema where everyone was drunk, and just getting through that by being dead in the centre of the role. Watching him manoeuvre this wheelchair through a gap to go into his little cubbyhole, fighting it out with his big fingers threading a tape through a spool, knocking the canisters off the desk. Just seeing his ability to hang in there as an actor and dig deep and manage the slalom of that play was really exciting. And when he got stuck in the doorway on a public dress with the whole glitterati of London, just toughing it out, and people thinking, "Oh, that was obviously meant to be." And his rigour every night, he would go and he would thread tape into the spool and practiced that, because he got very tense about that beforehand. Almost derailed the whole job. Would he be able to thread the tape in the tape recorder? And just watching him, a real pro, do all those things was very moving. And he said to me it was one of the most valuable creative experiences of his life. I think when you perform Beckett, when you work on Beckett, he takes you to the abyss and makes you look into it. But because the art is so amazing, there's something very exciting about that brilliance. And I'm so proud to have had that experience and had that interaction with him and Beckett. And often he would talk about that relationship, and we made a few little changes, and Harold would say, well, I've talked to Sam and he says that's okay. You know, he says it's fine to cut the bananas. That was all very moving, to remember how he stole that copy of a Beckett novel from Hackney Library that he cherished, and there he was acting in, you know, one of his great heroes on the Royal Court stage. I will never forget it.
How many performances did he give?
He did 10, yeah, and then we filmed it.
Did he read his reviews?
I think he probably did. I don't, so I did never talk to him about them, but I think he probably did.
I mean, you know, tickets were going on eBay for hundreds of pounds.
Yes, I mean, I rang him excitedly and naively on the couple of weeks before we began, saying they'd been queuing outside the Royal Court since 5:30 in the morning, and he went, look, anyway, goodbye. Thinking, oh no, you know, I've got to really do this, but I think he began to relish doing it.
So when you came to film,
yeah,
you shot it in the theatre upstairs at the court.
Yeah,
and you shot it over what? How long?
Well, actually, we had to shoot that live with 3 cameras. So because of Harold's health, we couldn't do a pick up, go again, let's try this angle. We had to get him doing it live and just follow him live mixing. So I think the film has a kind of roughness, but it does capture the liveness of that performance. And what I love about the film is the intimacy it gives you with him as a performer, because the camera can go right close, can look at those amazing fingers, the eyes, and really capture that. And he was very proud that we could do that.
And you can see the thoughts,
yeah,
in the silences. And
yes, yes, really exciting to note a silence and to look at the narrative of a silence and how thoughts change, and talk to him about that, and also how, as we know, immersed and excited he is about rhythm. And in KRAPP'S Last Tape you can really relish the rhythms and how they alter and change and play through.
Did you ever have to tell him to relish something less?
Generally I was getting him to relish more, because I think he hadn't been on stage for a long time, and I think allowing him the space to dive as deeply as you need to in Beckett, to excavate it, and to create the time on stage to do that, was something that was very natural for me as a director to do, to empower him.
So the film that we see has no pickups in it, no restarts, or?
There's just a pickup of the tapes on the floor and a little pickup of him going into the cubbyhole. Apart from that, it's live.
And he did it once and once only?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Because everyone was saying, let's put the play on the main stage of the Royal Court, let's do it for longer. For Harold, the 10 performances were enough. And the film. That was all.
Ian, thank you.
Thanks. Oh, it's moving to think about that. You were there on that first...